Welcome back. It is the Arvo Flow Sports Hour, and it's time to talk about all the weird stories doing the rounds in the world of sport with Eddie Dadds, our North American sports correspondent. Great to have you on the line again, Eddie, and welcome back to your home of South Australia. How are you getting on?
Oh, I'm going great, Alice. It's been a really nice change to be able to flick on the cricket and just sit in front of Test cricket with a beer in hand for a few days straight. That was lovely. Obviously, the Australia West Indies series has been happening as we speak, along with the World Cup and a heap of other things as well. So it's an exciting time, and it's lovely to be back in some warm weather for once.
Good times indeed. Not so much for Raheem Sterling, though, the England star who's over with England in Qatar for the World Cup. Unfortunately, his World Cup has been cut short because of some troubles back home, Eddie. So what do you know about this one?
Yeah, so this is a really kind of disturbing story. Apparently, poor Raheem Sterling had to be sent home from not sent home. He chose to go home from Qatar. Apparently, his home was broken into by armed intruders while his family was there. Obviously, Raheem Sterling is based in England. He's with Chelsea at the moment. A really sort of worrying, disturbing story that people are clearly taking advantage of the knowledge that he's away from home to try and, either intimidate his family or steal things. Who knows? What the interesting part of this article, Ellis, that you sent me was, it says down the bottom that dating back more than a decade, Premier League soccer players from high-profile teams have frequently been targeted with home break-ins during game times, Champions League trips, or tournaments. I didn't realise that this was something that was common. Is there any sort of other instances that spring to mind for you of this happening to other players?
Well, I was going to go to you with this, Eddie, because I find it quite staggering too. I guess there's no better time to have some certainty about when someone's home other than when you're watching them on TV live. But,
True.
I mean, I've got to say, and not just footballers, but sports stars in general, I find that I hear more often about sports stars being broken into than people I actually know.
Yeah, I mean, that's true. I think it's a good point about what you said. I watched this, I think it was a Netflix documentary recently called The Bling Ring about these teenagers in Hollywood that used to go around breaking into celebrities' homes in Hollywood when they knew that they were away. So it must be something like that. It must be, like you say, the certainty of just knowing that they're not going to get walked in on by Raheem Sterling himself that encourages him to do this. But yes, it's very worrying for his family that they're in the house, presumably watching him on the TV, and these armed intruders come in. So, I mean, cannot blame Raheem for heading home. And obviously, some things are a lot bigger than sport. It's a bit of a blow for the England side, though. I mean, I think from what I've heard, he's not been getting the most game time, Ellis, but he's definitely a handy player to have on the sidelines to chuck in certain situations. Do you think this is going to impact England's performances going forward?
I think, you've got to feel for England when any of these sort of superstitious stories come out, because we know that they're fragile at the best of times, the English, and they'll certainly hate to have heard about this after getting such a comfortable win against Senegal. But sticking to weird World Cup matters, Eddie, and Matt Ryan, we know that he made a real howler against Argentina, the Australian goalkeeper and the captain. I may well have been baking him at the time, Eddie, in front of some people that we know, but in more subsequent times since the game has concluded, I really do feel a bit for Matt Ryan, particularly given that he's had this rather sort of pesty teammate in domestic matters really going at it with him in a bit of dispute that's been going on for a number of months. So this is the Polish goalkeeper who currently occupies the number one spot at Matt Ryan's club, FC Copenhagen in Denmark. They've been having a war of words, Eddie, that's lasted for weeks, but on the back of Matt Ryan's howler, this guy came up, his name's Kamil Grabara. He came up and put out a tweet which was sarcastic and aimed at Matt Ryan, and certainly will do nothing to help Matt Ryan pick up his confidence again. So this is a really, really funny one. You don't hear about this very often at all.
No, and firstly, I want to give a massive shout out to Matt Ryan. He's a contributor at FC Playbook. He's an absolute NRL super coach nutty, believe it or not. So he jumps on the podcasts and writes some articles every now and then. So I want to give a massive shout out to Matty Ryan, who had a cracker of a World Cup, the Australian captain. As you said, Ellis, a pretty diabolical mistake to give Argentina their second goal, but I think we'll forgive him given the number of goals that he actually saved during the tournament. But yeah, this Kamil Grabara, him and Ryan are clearly not on very good terms. Ryan's the number 2 goalkeeper. He's the number 1 goalkeeper. Grabara has tweeted, "Must have been politics for sure, winky face," hinting that Ryan lost his spot to him at club level because of skill. Apparently Matt Ryan wasn't here in an interview he gave to Fox Sports after match. He wasn't particularly surprised by Grabara's tweet. And thankfully, it seems that most of the football public is on Matt Ryan's side in this instance. I mean, Grabara was making up the numbers in the Polish squad. Matt Ryan captained his country to the last 16. So I'm not sure that Grabara has many legs to stand on, Ellis. But it is interesting that Matt Ryan can't get a game at club level after this display at the World Cup. I'm sure there are going to be teams that are interested in his performances. He stood up against the best in the world.
He most certainly did. And as you say, there is speculation that he'll be heading for the exit doors come January 1. So we'll monitor that. Now, I'm glad you went to scplaybook.com.au before there, Eddie. We know that it's going to be a massive year for the NRL with scplaybook.com.au in 2023. One of the interesting stories coming out in more recent times has to be one that concerns the Parramatta Eels and Mitchell Moses, because the Eels, after having such a promising 2022 season, which saw them make a grand final for the first time in a long period of time, they'll be looking to rebuild and definitely capture all this momentum, Eddie, but it looks like they might struggle to do so, and it appears that all the money in the world may still seem a struggle for them to hold on to a prized player.
Yeah, now, Ellis, normally I would say these sorts of stories are kind of storm in a teacup stuff, things in the off-season that people are grasping at to try and get a few more clicks. But this one does seem quite real to me because, by all accounts, the Parramatta Eels have offered Mitchell Moses $1 million a season, which is obviously a very high paycheck. He's a great player, and he's going to get paid somewhere. But he's being offered $1 million to re-sign with the Eels. His contract runs out at the end of 2023. But apparently he's sort of weighing up his options. By all accounts, the Bulldogs and the West Tigers are interested. And some of the journalists, like Phil Rothfield, is not confident that they're going to be able to keep Mitchell Moses, which is just going to be a massive, massive blow for the Parramatta Eels. And it does really sort of raise questions, Ellis. If $1 million and a grand final isn't enough to keep a player at the club, what is going on there? Because in any other situation, you would think, yep, that's locked and loaded. Yep, Moses is going to stay. It's a really interesting one as well because Rothfield makes a really good point that, what exactly is going on with this salary cap management? Because both Moses and Dylan Brown, who are the halves pairing at the Eels, come out of contract at the end of 2023. So, the fact that this is all happening this year and that the Eels have left themselves in this position where they're happy to keep both of them at once, it's a little worrying for the club. We were thrilled. You and I spoke many times about how thrilled we were for the Parramatta fans that they're able to finally get back to the top of the NRL or close to. I'm hoping it's not going to be a short-lived venture up the top of the table, Ellis.
I think you're exactly right, and you've got a feel for the Eels, and it is pretty incredible to think that $1 million and knowing that you're probably going to be closer to a premiership than you will be at most other clubs just isn't quite enough, and unfortunately it lends to the theory that money is everything for athletes these days, Eddie, which is a little disappointing. But what was not disappointing about the weekend was this spectacular little do-up by the F1 star who's come out to make himself look as Aussie as one possibly can. We're talking about the Finnish F1 star Valtteri Bottas. He's looking a little bit more Aussie than you and I, Eddie, which I think is pretty hard to do. But there you have it. Now, what do you know about this one? Because we just absolutely love and adore stories like this.
Yeah, now this dropped on Saturday night, Ellis. This video Valtteri Bottas tweeted out of himself. It popped up on my Twitter. I don't normally watch sort of F1 content, but I clicked into it, and it was honestly the most remarkable 60 seconds of viewing that I've ever seen. Valtteri Bottas, who's kind of a dowdy-looking Finnish F1 driver, he's got an Australian partner, Tiffany Cromwell, who's a cyclist. And basically the crux of the video is Valtteri trying to figure out how he can fit in better in Australia while the two holiday. So he goes to a barber, gets his sort of his balding hair framed into a mullet, has a moustache, drinks a VB, wears a VB singlet, and it is honestly one of the funniest things I've ever seen in my life. So could not recommend any higher anyone going to check out that on Valtteri's social medias. It's brilliant. He's now an honorary Aussie for life. I'm sure after this he's going to get cheered left, front and centre when he comes out to the Australian Grand Prix. What a lovable, very funny human being Valtteri Bottas has turned out to be. I'm thrilled by it, Ellis. I love it.
Yeah, quite sincerely, when I first saw it, I thought it was a genuine endorsement for Victoria Bitter. So, it's pretty amazing stuff. The caption, embracing his inner bogan. You got to love it, Eddie, and these are the stories that just make for great filler content in and amongst all the serious stuff that we have to report on throughout the week. Eddie Datz from scplaybook.com.au. Love to catch up with you again. Welcome home. It's been great to have you on the Arvo Flow Sports Hour again. We'll chat to you next week.
Thanks, Ellis. Appreciate your time.